He comes in once a week. We usually do a delay before we get to him, and all I can say
This is
is
a classic Mark Thompson time waster.
we adore him nonetheless when it comes to music, movies, streaming. He is without peer. He comes and goes on a rainbow. The great Michael Snyder, the culture blaster. Hello, sir.
Wait. Is the Love Fest over yet? I'm just checking here. Lovely to be on board here, and happy second anniversary to all. For everyone planning to honor the occasion. I think the first anniversary gift is paper, so that should be ruled out. I think the second anniversary gift is either beef jerky or an old shoe, so send off those goodies to MTS headquarters, care of Hollywood, California. We're going to have a beef jerky festival. I think it's going to be great. And in the meantime, it's Victory Friday. I am still basking in the glow of the Niners' victory over the Seahawks last night. We won't waste much more time on that stuff because so much time has been burnt today, and I want to get to some movie reviews. What do you say?
Let's do it. I've been waiting. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and this is relevant. Your politics consciousness is first and foremost here on the Mark Thompson Show. I get it. So how about we deal with The Apprentice? Now, I won't go so far as to say that The Apprentice is an October surprise. I mean, its effect on the coming election will probably be minimal, but it is a sharp drama based on, the courtship of young Donald. It's about Donald Trump as a young man who is taken under the wing of the evil, amoral, right-wing lawyer and fixer Roy Cohn, one of the architects of the McCarthy hearings, a guy who I guess sensed the kindred sleazebag in Trump, and he's the man who taught Donald every dirty trick at his disposal.
Did we get a? You didn't send us any art on that. You didn't send us one of those.
I absolutely did. So
movie poster for it. Oh, The Apprentice. No,
I did, but failed at your end.
Continue. I just had to ask. Okay, go ahead. Yeah. Maybe we can Google. So there it is. The Apprentice,
business, brother, as you can see, or not see if you're listening to the audio version. Okay, so this is very, very good and very revealing. And even if it's been somewhat fictionalized, because we can't know what the private conversations were, particularly, it does a good job of following the relationship between these two beasts, Trump and Cohn, in New York City from the 70s into the 80s. And I was stunned. Sebastian Stan plays young Donald Trump. This is the guy probably best known as Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier in the Marvel movies. He played Tommy Lee in Pam and Tommy, the miniseries about the relationship between Tommy Lee and Pam Anderson. And here he's the fledgling orange ogre, not quite so orange at this point. Stan is very versatile, and he's a fine actor, and he nails Trump without doing some sort of bogus impression. It's not like we're watching, Alec Baldwin doing it on SNL. Right. And he is countered in really strong fashion, pardon the expression, by Jeremy Strong, so memorable and Weasley on Succession. And here he is terrific as Cohn, the vile Roy Cohn, who, by the way, was a gay man who somehow coexisted with conservatives despite flaunting his sexuality in certain safe spaces with his allies. Maria Bakalova, the Bulgarian actress best known for playing Borat's daughter in the Borat sequel, and mock-seducing Rudy Giuliani. See, another political connection here. She plays Ivana, who is a social climbing Eastern European, wooed by Don Boy, and who, as we all know, got more than she bargained for. By the way, sound familiar? Eastern European social climber? Donald Trump? Anyway, Martin Donovan plays Big Daddy Fred Trump, who is, to put it mildly, a piece of work and proof that the rotten apple generally falls from a diseased tree. If you take that garden metaphor in a different direction, Cohn was the poison fertilizer that nourished the Trump that besmirches the world today. And that's the heart and soul of this movie. There's even, by the way, a depiction of a young Roger Stone, who apparently was one of Cohn's toadies back then and molded into a similar creature as Donald was molded. The Apprentice, the movie, not the TV series, was directed by Ali Abbasi and written by Gabriel Sherman. As episodic as it is fascinating and compelling to see what seems like a pretty accurate depiction of a twisted, corrupt, self-serving group of power junkies, two in particular. I heartily recommend it, even if we already know our enemy and can presume his sordid origins. We've seen him in the press since the 70s. We know who Donald Trump is, but this is getting a little behind the scenes. The Apprentice is in theaters.
Well, first, I believe you used the word besmirch, which is a ding word. But secondly, it seems as though it'll be riveting. I'm looking forward to it.
It was. And again, episodic. And speaking of episodic, the next movie
what does episodic mean for those of us who just buy a ticket and go into the theater?
Basically, vignettes through the years.
I see.
That relate to the story. It's not linear per se. It is chronologically in order, but we jump a little bit. And that's really what this next film does as well. It's called
hang on a second, Michael. We're having an argument here. It's not. I do not think it is. It's not. Episodic is not a ding word. Please proceed without the ding.
I have no call in that.
I understand. I'm sorry for the interruption. Go ahead.
That's you and your bell, buddy.
Yeah.
Anyway, directed by John Crowley and written by Nick Payne, We Live in Time is a time-shifting love story. Remember Love Story with Ryan O'Neal and Ali
McGraw?
Yeah, Ali McGraw. Okay.
Love is never having to say you're sorry.
Well, I said I was sorry that I went to that movie, but that's just me. Anyway, Love Story minus the schmaltz is We Live in Time. This stars Florence Pugh, who people got to know from her work in Little Women, who was wonderful in the creepy Midsummer, was in Oppenheimer, Fighting with My Family. She's Yelena Belova in the Marvel movies, and she does superb work, as usual, in this film. And it also co-stars, speaking of Marvel, the second of the live action movie Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield. And they're a couple who meet, fall in love, get married, have a kid, and this is not a spoiler alert since it's apparent early in the picture, have to deal with her cancer diagnosis.
Sure, exactly, I'm sure, yeah. Okay, just like a love story, yeah.
Yeah, so this jumps from incident to incident and year to year, but back and forth, not chronologically as The Apprentice does. And so it gets a little herky-jerky. And despite the excellent performances by Pugh and to a lesser extent Garfield, it didn't move me as I expected it might. I mean, I'm a guy that mists up when grandma gets her birthday phone call in an AT&T ad, Oh, God.
Right. Sure, you're emotional.
I'm so glad they phoned her. Oh, my God. So, We Live in Time, which has a lot of foodie movie elements to it because Pugh's character is a acclaimed chef. Actually, Garfield's character is kind of an actor who's struggling. She's an acclaimed chef. She has, all the love and all the respect that entails. And it's a hard job to be in charge of a restaurant, a successful one or not, an unsuccessful one. And so she's wrapped up in that. And that becomes part and parcel of the movie and decisions she makes when confronted with her diagnosis. I give it maybe a half tier on the Snyder cryometer, but I do encourage romantics to see it. If you can take the scattered kind of snapshot effect of the movie, We Live in Time is in theaters.
Wow. Well, they're two very attractive young people, Michael. And the thought that she's dealing with even fake cancer almost moves me to tears just looking at the movie poster.
Yeah, so, I'll tell you what, fake cancer, a lot easier to deal with than real cancer. But yes, you are correct, sir.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, again, you kind of, sadly, you think it just didn't hit the mark.
No, it's a good.
It's a good, what happened? Do we lose him? I lost my darling Culture Blaster. I don't hear him. I see him, though, which means that he's still connected.
Yes, he's still connected. I'm not sure if you could hear us, but Michael, if you want to just rejoin, we could just reconnect from there.
Yeah. Maybe a rejoin, Michael, if you could, from wherever you are. I don't know where you are. But now he's reconnecting. This is always exciting. This is one of the things that is a little different than the old radio show that birthed this. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Michael, can you hear us, please, sir?
Technical difficulties, but we're back. I don't always get a chance to see every movie I want to see in any given week. And in the case of The Wild Robot, the screening for the movie, it's an animated film. It's got science fiction elements. It sounds like it's really in my wheelhouse. The screening was pitted against Megalopolis, which made way more sense for me to see at the time because it included a Q&A, albeit one done remote from New York with Francis Ford Coppola. So I finally got a chance to watch The Wild Robot, and I have to say it is a lovely animated movie about a robot, I think Rosum Unit 7134, ROS for short, who ends up being, I guess the intent is to send the robot to a family where it'll be a helper, but there's a ship that sinks, and a box with the robot ends up on the shores of an uninhabited island. But actually, there are animals on the island as well. And the robot wants to get back to where she, because it has kind of a female personality, is supposed to go, but ends up stuck on the island and kind of relating to all the animals on the island. And while at the same time thinking she needs to be elsewhere. I don't want to get too scientific on you, but there are considerable more than trace elements of The Iron Giant, which is, to my mind, one of the greatest animated movies of all time. Bambi, The Ugly Duckling, and Wall-E. She takes a runt duck under her wing and becomes kind of a surrogate mother. It's beautifully illustrated, beautifully shot. Director Christopher Sanders does wizardly work here. He also is the screenwriter, and the voice work is fantastic. Lupita Nyong'o is the voice of Roz. Pedro Pascal is a fox named Fink, who's kind of a trickster who ends up becoming a buddy of Roz and the little duckling. Catherine O'Hara adds her voice. Bill Nighy. Stephanie Sue is also a voice here. Mark Hamill, Matt Berry. They didn't mess around. And God, it's lovely. It's a wonderful movie for the entire family. The Wild Robot will obviously be in the conversation for Best Animated Film of the Year. I thought it was wonderful. And despite, me going in and saying, is this kind of a remake of The Iron Giant, it really is its own thing. I thought it was terrific.
It's in theaters, sir?
It is indeed.
All right. I love it.
Let's shall we wrap up? Because, there is this sensibility in Hollywood that we want to lean on intellectual property that we know is going to work, something familiar. They don't want to greenlight anything that might be risky, particularly in this day and age.
Okay.
It's an issue, right?
I agree.
So
that seems to be the trend. That's true. Yes.
What do we see here but movies like a remake of Salem's Lot, which was, by the way, intended to be put into theaters, and then our arch enemy David Zaslav, now head of Warner Discovery, deemed that, oh no, this isn't going into theaters. We're going to put this on Max. That has come down the pike. And I'll just say in passing, if you've seen the miniseries of Salem's Lot from back in the day, it's a much better representation of Stephen King's novel, which is basically a vampire story. His town up in New England is being overrun by a vampire who, takes no prisoners. This has a few jump scares in it, and it doesn't have, a lot of big names involved. but Lewis Pullman as the central figure, Ben Mears, usually does good work, and he's good here. Alfred Woodard's in here, and a few other noted actors. It just, I feel like been there, done that. And that becomes even more of an issue in what I thought was a better movie with Apartment 7A, which is a prequel to Rosemary's Baby.
Oh, wow.
So Apartment 7A stars Julia Garner, who is so good in the indie movie The Assistant. She was acclaimed for her work on the TV shows Ozark and The Americans, and she was the central character in Inventing Anna, which kind of was a wonderful miniseries on Netflix. And she's the central focus here to this prequel. But rather than playing a young married woman moving into a Gothic New York City apartment building with her husband, as was the situation in Rosemary's Baby, the prequel has Garner's character being a wannabe Broadway star in the 1960s, a dancer who screws up her ankle and tries to fight back onto the stage, and basically leans on a seemingly kindly couple who offer her free lodging in their spare apartment in a very familiar looking Gothic New York City apartment building. So I guess this is where the Rosemary's Baby story played out. And we actually see an elderly husband and wife, in this case played by Diane Wiest and Kevin McNally. They're Roman and Minnie Castevet, and those are the names of the two characters played in Rosemary's Baby, who essentially mentor Mia Farrow and John Cassavetes' character.
Okay, yeah. I thought it was Richard Benjamin, but yeah, go ahead.
So here you go, man. It's very similar beats to Rosemary's Baby. It looks good. The performances are good. Diane Wiest doing a bit of her Ruth Gordon. Ruth Gordon played Minnie in the original Rosemary's Baby. And there are some lovely sequences. There's one really crazy, dreamy sequence that I thought was incredibly creative, and I won't go into detail because I don't want to blow it for anybody. But the movie, which is in fact directed by Natalie Erica James, we've been here before, kind of. And as interesting as it is to see a different person as the target of a satanic cult, it's about Satan. We've been here before, and in that regard, I can only say horror movie fans, Rosemary's Baby fans, people who have never seen the original movie, might get something out of this. But again, this is not great cinema. It is available on Paramount Plus, so you don't have to go to a movie theater to see it.
No, that's great. So you really like it, it sounds like. Is it a qualified like? It seems like the end you were kind of pulling up a little bit.
Totally a qualified like, because we've been here before. Right. It's just, well executed for what it is, and it's a little bit of a twist, pardon the ankle reference, on the original, because she's not a married woman. She's a single gal trying to make it in the theater. And so it's not the same sort of thing. It just feels, though, that they've gone to the well again. And that has been kind of a problem, I think, with much of this reconstituting IP, reimagining.
That's why you started with the reconstitution of IP, because you feel like, it's sort of that's what this is. Yeah. Good stuff, Michael. I love it. Well, so I just want to get clear on something. The Salem's Lot is a pass. Is that kind of what you were saying?
Yeah, I wanted to like it. It has some jump scares. It just didn't really knock me out at all.
So that's why you segued quickly to Apartment 7A. Okay, good stuff. Albert, what is our story? Are we out of time for brother Michael?
I think he has one more. I think we could fit in one more.
One more, please, Michael.
All right. Well, quickly, we'll talk about The Critic, which has been out and around for a little while. I did want to point out that it's available for streaming now. Well, it will be, on October 29th. So it's a little ways away, but it had a brief theatrical run. And essentially, it's a period piece about a London theater critic who's, the nightmare theater critic who can make or break a show and has, glories in his power and abuses it if he feels like it. He's also a closeted gay man in the 30s in London. And, there are issues with that circumstance back then. We have enough problems these days with the LGBTQ hatred and negativity. But back then, you could be arrested and jailed if they found out what you were up to. So he's an older guy. He might be pushed out of the newspaper where he's been kind of a kingpin for so long. And he has it in for a young actress played by Gemma Arterton, who was so good she's been in a variety of things, starting with the remake of the St. Trinian's movies about a girls' school when she was, I guess in her early 20s playing a teenager. And she was also in Quantum of Solace. She played opposite Daniel Craig in a James Bond film. Here she is, a somewhat talented actress who is constantly belittled, berated, and brought down by the McKellen character's reviews. And they developed this kind of strange symbiotic relationship. And she, finds herself basically at his mercy, but also finds herself and her career starting to get a little bit on the upswing. It's not a great movie. It's sort of typical in some ways, but McKellen and Arterton are very, very good. And you also get supporting work from Mark Strong and Leslie Manville. What's interesting about this is Anand Tucker, who in fact was the director of this thing, has worked on some pretty cool films. Shop Girl, the Steve Martin movie, Girl with the Pearl Earring, which featured Scarlett Johansson, a really good crime drama period thing called Red Riding, 1983. And I just kind of wish this had been better. And in fact, to make matters even more strange, Patrick Marber, the screenwriter, wrote Closer and Notes on a Scandal, both of which are top drawer. So with all the talent involved, it's a little disappointing. But when it comes to streaming, I'd recommend it, if only for the great Ian McKellen's performance.
Wow. Well, there you have it. It's called The Critic, and it will be streaming at the end of this month. Is that what you said?
I did indeed. It'll be available for streaming October 29th. It's been in theaters, and actually it was not just in select theaters. It was pretty wide, but I don't think it made much of a splash in this blockbustery day and age.
Well, there you had a lot of very, very talented people associated with this project, and you can see it streaming at the end of this month. It says The Critic, it's called. Apartment 7A is the prequel to Rosemary's Baby. Michael liked it. Qualified like. Julie Garner is in the lead role, but there are other very talented people who are also filling out the production, among them Diane Wiest later in the film, I guess.
Well, she plays Minnie, the older woman, the same character played by Ruth Gordon in Rosemary's Baby. Yeah, it was a qualified thumbs up.
Qualified thumbs up for Apartment 7A. And again, that is streaming now. It's streaming on Paramount Plus.
Yeah.
Salem's Lot, he said, kind of pass. He said there are a couple of scares there, but not really worth recommending. And that's why he was quickly on to Apartment 7A. But Salem's Lot, if you want to see it, is on Max. The Wild Robot, he really likes this. And while he feels as though there are elements of well-known film and narrative that we are familiar with, it is so well done and so well executed. Michael, the Culture Blaster, really likes The Wild Robot, and it is in theaters now. So.
Yeah, it's its own thing, and you'll say, "Oh yeah, that reminds me." Well, you won't. You'll be caught up in the story.
Yeah, you'll be warmed by the feeling that you get by recognizing some of these things that resonate so well with you, probably as you see it. Oh, great Culture Blaster! Again, The Wild Robot is in theaters now. We Live in Time is the project that's evocative, Michael says, of a love story, which many of us grew up with. The Eric Siegel book made into a movie. This has Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh. It's hard to believe that gorgeous Florence Pugh is quickly diagnosed with cancer. She has to fight that cancer while also falling madly in love with her Andrew Garfield. She also has to fight what Michael says is a herky-jerky script. You got the herky-jerky and the cancer in the same effort. It's quite a fight.
Yeah, it bounces back and forth from era to era, from year to year, from situation to situation in their relationship. But
I think I love Florence Pugh. Could be enough to get me to the theater. We Live in Time is in theaters now. The Apprentice. The Jeremy Strong, Sebastian Stan, Maria Bakalova project. It tells the story of Donald Trump and his connection with Roy Cohn. Michael really liked it. He said they're very good performances here. It's episodic, meaning it is a number of different episodes from the Trump life. Isn't that what episodic really meant in this case, Michael?
Yeah, there are significant moments in Trump's life over the course of, a number of years.
It did well at Cannes. There's a buzz on the street about The Apprentice. If you want to see it, you need to go to theaters to do it. Isn't that right?
Sure. The October surprises, it's really good. No, it could possibly impact one or two people. But, ultimately, it's just a fascinating look at corrupt individuals and how someone gets more and more poisoned and is given the tools to do what Trump has done over the course of his, let's just say, checkered career.
Well, very, very intriguing. I'm looking forward to it. The Apprentice, as I say, in theaters. Well, Great Culture Blaster, we have covered it all. We are winding things down. We are grateful for your participation regularly on Fridays. You are a part of our history over the last 2 years. You were with us at KGO Radio, the station that birthed us, and now you are here with us. And I'm delighted to say thank you. And you are good friends with your pal Tim Sika. I know he's also a movie critic. Do you guys ever get together for coffee and just knock things around or text back and forth on various projects that you both see?
Yeah, we absolutely do. Good man, Tim. And he's San Jose based. So even though I am back in San Francisco for the bulk of October, I have yet to run into him in person, but we should really make the time and conspire against both you and Kim in some way.
All right, that's intriguing in itself. So, all right, Michael, we love you. We encourage people to check out your musings at thevoicesf.org. Thevoicesf.org. Michael is a very talented writer, and the Culture Blaster writes about all things. He does come and go on a rainbow. Bye-bye, Michael.
Happy anniversary, guys.
Thank you so much, oh great Culture Blaster.